I got the live stream set up. Okay, I think I got the live stream set up properly now. Hold on. Oh, and then I need to post the Discord invite. Are you able to hear me all right on am I unmuted? Yeah, I am. Are you guys able to hear me all right in the Zoom chat or the YouTube chat? I'm actually locked out of my apartment, so I have a slightly different setup right now. So yeah, I want to check that audio is still working all right because I don't have the microphone I usually use. All right, cool. You're able to hear me on the Zoom meeting. And then, oh, and awesome, you guys can hear me in the YouTube chat. I'm going to post the link, the Discord invite link to the group here in the YouTube chat. And then, there. Got the prompt over here. Oh, the like little bar where Zoom is like floating in a weird spot. And I wasn't able to crank down the resolution on the external monitor for this one. Yeah. What are you currently reading? If you're reading something, I see that in the YouTube chat. I actually have a infographic that I share. I'm gonna need to probably post another reminder about it in the Discord channel afterwards. Cool. All right. So we're live. And I posted a reminder in the Discord channel and I posted the invite link. I think that's everything I needed to do. Okay, I'm gonna put myself on mute and then I'll see you guys at 10:45. Right, it is 10:45 p.m. We are good to go ahead and get started, I guess. So this is problem number 50. This is our 50th problem that we've covered on the channel now, TicketMaster. This is actually the favorite problem of Steve from Life Engineered, who's a principal engineer at Amazon. This is his favorite interview question. So I wanted to do an exciting problem for problem number 50. And so we're going to do a favorite from a certain principal engineer from Amazon. So grokking does have some coverage of this problem. I didn't actually really like it. I have actually talked to Steve a little bit about this problem. He actually designed the ticketing system at Amazon. They actually used to do ticket sales, and like for like concerts and stuff. And like it's actually a very fascinating scale problem. But like if you look at the coverage in grokking, it just focuses on this like ER diagram, like relational aspect, and they have this fancy design that has like 10 SQL tables, and they call out like, hey, I think we're gonna have like a hot partition issue here. And it's like, yeah, you are. That is the scale problem here. It's a limited inventory problem similar to flash sale. What makes this one distinct and what Steve likes to add to the problem to make it really spicy is that you can also like pick your seat. And also there's group ticketing sales. So for example, if you are buying tickets for a group of like 3 to 5 people or like two, I think two is like the most common. If you're buying group tickets, you of course all want to have a seat next to each other. If it's general admission and like you don't have to have like assigned seats and it's just like standing up in like a field or something, no issue there. But you need to make sure that you answer the prompts that your interviewer gives you. And in the case of Steve, when he's your interviewer, he really wants to see you handle group ticketing if it's not general admission. And so that really makes this distinct from the flash sale problem is that group tickets. And so like you have this like seat layout and like that makes it a little bit more on the airline ticketing problem as compared to like hotel booking. So like flash sale is kind of like a high volume, brief traffic spike of the hotel booking problem. And then airline ticketing, if you crank up the volume on the traffic volume on that, it starts to look more like this TicketMaster problem. And so there's like parallels from the transformation of hotel booking to airline ticketing, and similarly to like the transformation from flash sale to Ticketmaster is my take on this. But I don't know. I guess even the URL, the ER diagrams and relational aspect of the Ticketmaster problem is even kind of interesting, and I will make sure to at least talk about that a little bit briefly. This is actually the prompt that has been posted in a couple of places, and it really focuses on the ER diagram and the relational aspects. It's mostly about the relational aspects. It does call out the holding for 5 to 10 minutes thing. I don't know if I'm going to be able to cover that super well tonight. I know we kind of discussed that a little bit at the flash sale problem. And I can try and I hope I can remember what I said about that. But we did kind of talk about I think cancellation of orders on Amazon.com kind of has a similar setup. And yeah, it was so it has the inventory is not fungible. Like each individual seat is like a distinct thing. So you don't have, instead of a counter, you have like the seat layout. And that's how this is really, that's how you can transform it from flash sale to this. But there's a different way that you can give a prompt for this one where it is just basically the same thing as flash sale, which is if you just do general admission. And so some of your interviewers for this problem might just go ahead and do flash sale, but when you're interviewing with Steve specifically, I think he wants to see the seat layout thing. We'll see how I'm going to do with that. And then I have the flash sale prompts again, because like I said, another variation of how you might present this problem might make it just look a lot like flash sale. So we're going to start off with something kind of looking like that. And I'm going to try and turn it into more of what Steve would typically see. Yeah. All right. Any questions about the prompt or some context on this problem before we begin? All right, I will go ahead and kick off the diagramming then. All right, so there's like you start off with the entry points and exit points, and it kind of has like a one-to-one correlation with the requirements. So we're gonna have a couple of things for like web pages or just like where stuff's gonna like come into the system. So we're gonna have the users searching for events. That is the ER diagram thing, and it's gonna be the less exciting part of it's the less exciting part of the scale challenge for this problem. And then the other one is the booking itself. So that's the user, and they are booking a ticket. And then of course we're going to have in parallel, it would have we would have the event search service. And we're also going to have the what did I want? It was booking service. And then this is going to be where the scale challenge is going to be. This one is going to scale really easy. I am going to start off with this one, this piece, which is going to be the easier part to scale. So it's just going to be, you're just going to have like a read of, so let's go ahead and have a data store. This is going to be a lot like the vending machine problem, where you just have some kind of, we'll say the event DB, and it's just some kind of search engine. You just have some kind of search thing. It's really read heavy over here, very read heavy, and you don't really have any writes at all. So this parallel to, there's a lot of problems that have this thing where it's like you have some kind of thing that you're trying to search for. And like, so you have the primary, it's like, you know, very low write volume. That's the write, how the data even gets there is basically out of scope completely. It's just events being entered somehow. And that's not even going to have a TPS of 1. It's like less than 1. And then you're going to have a whole bunch of reads. And so how you're going to scale that up is obviously going to be from having a whole bunch of read replicas. And the ER diagram for TicketMaster and grokking was really sophisticated and had like a lot of stuff going on. So what you could do, even though it's not going to be like a lot of data, though, you can store it on a single machine. And so what you could do is just store that on, you know, one machine, and then you just replicate the hell out of it. So we would have just one PostgreSQL database here, and then you literally just replicate it to a whole bunch of read replicas. Other options could be Elasticsearch for the event narrowing down part. And then it's so easy though. You just throw a whole bunch of read replicas at it. That's just easy as hell. We've done that plenty of times. And we're gonna do that. And so these are the read replicas. And then I'm gonna type read replicas over here. Super easy. And then you're just gonna do so you got your read request coming in, and then you're gonna hit one specific node you wanna, so there's gonna be a crap ton of secondary indexes, and you would hopefully have some kind of partitioning strategy that would avoid doing scatter gather on them. Although I don't think the event search itself is actually going to, I don't think that's going to have quite the traffic spike that individual events will have. They'll be looking up an event, and then over here, I think they'd be on some kind of event page. So you'd have like ticketmaster.com/events, and then the event ID, which is going to be, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so what they're doing here is narrowing down to a specific event. And then once they got the event ID, they're going to be on this booking page. And so now they're on the booking page, and they're going to want to get a specific ticket. And that's when the fun's really going to begin. Let's talk about the schema really briefly. I'm not going to go through the entire ER diagram like they did in grokking, because it's an ER diagram. It's not like it's a very objective step-by-step process that there's not a lot of art to. I took a DB class in college, and it's very there's not any art to it. It's a pure science. ER diagrams for relational databases are a pure science. Unlike system design, where there's all these trade-offs, you really, there's like a single specific answer like 99% of the time with database schemas. But this is the event table. And so you're going to have a primary key of the event ID. Is the primary key. And again, this is going to be PostgreSQL/Elasticsearch. I see a question in the chat. Don't worry, I'll get to it in a minute here. And then you're going to have a whole bunch of different things you're going to narrow down to that they had over here. So it could be city, like is it Seattle? It could be I don't know, some kind of event name. I guess you could even have, so PostgreSQL actually does support inverted indexes, so you can actually do text search on it. So you can even do an event name, and it could be, so famously, there was the Taylor Swift concert that broke Ticketmaster. So Taylor Swift live concert. And I have this in the thumbnail for my video too right now, because Taylor Swift, there was a Taylor Swift concert that literally broke Ticketmaster, I think due to the scale. And so I'd like to highlight that to emphasize again that it is a scale challenge here, and you really need to make sure that you tackle the scale problem, don't hand wave it away like grokking. There will be some other secondary indexes, but again, I don't want to focus on these. I think that's enough information on the schema. There's a bunch of other secondary indexes though that I'd imagine you guys could come up with on your own pretty easily. It's covered in the other material out there. This piece right here, it's covered in all the other material out there. All you need to do though for scale though, read replicas, very easy. Let's hit up some other questions in the chat, and then I can move on to handling the booking service, which is that's where the fun scaling challenge is going to be. So first question in the chat, we've got, when is it best to do replication versus sharding for a database? Sharding, is it a matter of read heavy versus write heavy? So replication handles reads, handles read traffic volume. Handles high read traffic volume. So if you're trying to scale up your reads, that's how you do it. And then sharding is how you handle writes. And then if you have a ton of both, you have to do both. But generally, if the read traffic is equivalent in size to the write traffic, then you don't actually have to do a crap load of read replicas. If it's just read heavy and you're right, and there's basically no write volume, all you need is replication. All you need is replication, because you're just doing that. But the writes have to come into a leader node. I mean, there's leader list databases like Cassandra, but I think they I don't know. I guess that would work for usually when. Yeah, I mean, Cassandra definitely handles write heavy scenarios really well, but then you're forced into event sourcing kind of with that specific one. But in general, sharding is you need to throw a bunch of sharding at it if it's a high write volume piece. And so booking service is going to be high write volume. And then this problem's more interesting than other write heavy problems though, because there's also an importance to total ordering, kind of the ordering of the request. You kind of want to maintain that for fairness, and also there's like a stronger consistency requirement to this problem than other write heavy problems where you can just kind of throw it into Kafka for a while or something. So yeah, replication is all you need if you're nearly read heavy and stupendously read heavy. But if you're handling more, if the write volume is more than one machine can handle, that's when you need to start doing some sharding. Yeah. Okay. Next question in the chat, and then we can, I think this is the last one, and then we can move on to the booking service. Can we use Elasticsearch as a primary data store? No, actually you cannot. You can't. Good call out. So I guess if you did want to use Elasticsearch here, you might actually want to have PostgreSQL for this database. Then you can use Elasticsearch over here. This might be surprising to most people, but that is, it's actually in their documentation that you can't do that. It's because it actually has a split brain scenario that can come up. So you're not actually supposed to use it as a source of truth, a system of record. I think it said you're not supposed to use it as a system of record. It's basically just saying that you shouldn't be using it as your like, don't rely on it for durable data storage, and like it's don't rely on it for linearizability or like stronger consistency in general. It doesn't support DB triggers either, and that like goes totally in line with how you're not supposed to use it as a primary data store. So if you are going to use Elasticsearch, you probably want to use something else upstream for handling the writes. And so you would have PostgreSQL over here, and then you can just set up a DB trigger off of PostgreSQL, which it does support. And then you would just have Elasticsearch as the read service. And I actually have seen exactly this setup. Actually, it had DynamoDB over here, and then it had Elasticsearch down here in a production service. Yeah, so I mean that's a thing you can do, and yeah, that's kind of how I would handle that. All right. One more thing in the chat. It's not really a question, but and then explicitly says this. And I should say it is actually very surprising that you can't use it as a primary data store. I literally I knew so much system design before I even heard that you can't do that. It was very shocking when I learned that. Okay. Latest versions of Elasticsearch attempt to solve split brain as they use simplified wrap. Wow, fascinating. All right. It's fascinating that they're even going after that challenge, since their primary value add is through the search engine aspects and the searchability. It's like you can work around the fact that it's not good as a system of record pretty easily. And it's secondary indexing is just a very powerful thing that you don't have as much power with in a lot of other tools. So it's, yeah. Okay. We'll make this my last comment before I move on to the booking service. Share documentation. My company uses Elasticsearch. I actually don't even know where I had read that. I think I had just like looked it up somewhere. I don't actually have a link for that. Sorry. Anybody else can feel free to share that. I should move on to the booking service. Sorry. If somebody posts a link to that, I'll stick it in the document though. All right, let's move on to the booking service. So a request comes in, and we're just going to set this up kind of like flash sale for now. And then I'm going to show you how I would kind of modify that. We'll try and figure out how to modify that to look a little bit more like a couple of different variations of this problem. So we're going to need a data store, of course. We're going to need some kind of data store. It's the ticket data store. And so we're going to do something similar to flash sale, where we're just kind of storing the inventory on the same shards as the, we're going to store chunks of the inventory on the same shards as the orders getting placed. And what we want is this. All right. So we have the ticket data store. So we will have the inventory table, and we will also have the order table. So this one will have user ID for what they are placing the order for, an event ID. So we have the event ID up there that they looked for. And so there's the actual event ID. We might want to store the quantity of the tickets that they're buying. I think that is important. That was like a thing from flash sales. Like, what if they're buying like two? We should also have, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4, events ID. So this is parallel to item ID from flash sale. And then you will have quantity of tickets remaining. And then it'll be very easy to do light variations of that. I'll show you in a minute. We'll say there's 7,000 tickets available. All right. And you got quantity. We'll say that they're buying 2 tickets. And then payment info, of course. Be some kind of blob. Probably want to store the auth ID. You should, I don't know, I think I might have forgotten this last week, but you might even want to try, you should probably make it idempotent when you hit the request service. So you might want to even have a request ID that's loaded with the event page. You're loading the page, you might want to have a request ID associated with that page, deduping the, when you click the actual order button. And so I think you could even use the request ID as part of the primary key over here. And we're going to dedupe it like that. Okay, and then the auth IDs from the payment service, there should still be a payment service, just like last week. It's the payment processor. Cool. All right, so we got that. So the request comes in, you can store it directly in the ticket data store, and then you want to get that auth ID from the auth part of the auth capture workflow. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to update the ticket data store to hold that auth ID. And then we can just go ahead and do the processing asynchronously off in the background and just not even worry about the actual capture part of the workflow. And then we just go ahead and return it. And so that's just handling the flash sale variation of the problem. And so like I said, you would similarly, we already did this last week, sorry. So I'm trying to like speed run it. And then you got this for a DB trigger for change data capture. And then you got your task runners downstream. And all right, so we got that. And then we got our downstream task runners that are just going to pull in some messages. And then you do the capture workflow. I think you kind of have to like know what the payment info is. So you might actually have to do a read of the current order. And then you would do the capture workflow. And then you tell it, all right, it went successfully. Yeah, okay, so I just speed ran that. And it's just the same thing as flash sale from last week. We should maybe have a different 7 A, B, C, D, E, F. Cool. All right. Yeah. And so now we just have flash sale from last week. And we'll do our first variation is doing groups or sections within an event, like VIP tickets versus the middle of something. Like if you have like an upstairs or a downstairs or just like a specific sections within a thing, we'll do that next. And it's an easier variation, and then you can try the really tricky ones with individual seating. Let me look at the chat for any further questions. Okay, we could also need exact seats. I believe we might have to use it as some key. Yeah, yes, that's the harder variation that I'll get to after the sections, and this is the one that Steve likes to see. All right, other comments. So will that be similar to two-phase commit, the one done by task runners to get payment verification and other things? Well, so this one's actually so for the you can actually just kind of do sagas in a couple of areas on this, where it's so you don't actually have to do stronger consistency for some of the operations. So you actually don't have to do two-phase commit. In fact, that's the whole reason why I have the broker here, is that after you've done the auth step of the payment processor, the money is kind of like frozen on their card. So just look into like the documentation on Stripe or something. Stripe actually has really nice documentation on the auth capture workflow. But basically what it is that when you have a credit card and you enter the information into a website, it does this specific thing called the auth capture workflow in order to make the payment processing stuff idempotent. Making payment stuff idempotent is an interesting thing that's easy to screw up, and the general way that you make payment processing idempotent is through the auth capture workflow. And Stripe documents it pretty well. Is that first there's the auth step, and that just takes a certain chunk of money that it just holds on your card, and then it returns an auth ID back from the request to the payment service provider. That's over here. To receive back an auth ID, you tell it how much money, and it returns you an auth ID, and it's just held there. And then later, during the capture step, you give it that auth ID, and it actually charges the money and does the transfer of that money. The first step just holds it on the card separately, and then after 2 weeks, if you haven't done the capture step, it releases it. That's because so what it's kind of trying to do there is that, like, if it's for trying to prevent double charges. So like if the first one you get a partial failure scenario after doing the call to the auth step, if there's a partial failure scenario and you drop that auth ID, the money will just be returned to their card within the next 2 weeks. It will not actually do a transfer of the funds. And then so first one drops, second one you freeze another $40 or whatever, and then you have a new auth ID, and that's the only one that's stored. Well, then that's the only one that you're going to charge during the capture step. If you run the capture step multiple times with the same auth ID, it won't charge it multiple times. It can only charge it once. But that's so there's 2 calls to that process. It's idempotent. The thing that I did that was trickier and required linearizability is that counter thing, because you can get double charges. You can accidentally decrement the quantity twice. I covered this in the flash sale problem. But that's a big issue. And that's why I have it on the same why I try to keep it on the same partition as the orders in the order table, is that it prevents double decrementing from a partial failure scenario that can happen. Okay. All right, cool. I'm going to move on. We're going to do another variation now. So first we're going to do, well, I'll mark this. This is variation 1, general admission, which is easier. It doesn't have specific seats. And then we're going to do extra large. Now we're going to take this whole thing, we're going to copy it, we're going to move over to here. Now we have variation 2, seating sections. So you might have like VIP seats, or you might be booked for a certain area of it. They might have like these sectioned off areas. And all you need to do is that now there's an event ID, and you would also have a section ID as part of the primary key. So, and yeah, and so it's just kind of booked together. And then of course you also need it over there. We'll say section 5B, or like VIP 5B, or I don't know. It just kind of reminds me of so in the airline ticketing problem, there's like, first class versus business class versus economy class. I feel like I'm fairly certain there's stuff kind of like that you can do with TicketMaster or like ticket booking? Okay, but that's one variation, and it's not very tricky to handle that. So seating sections, and then we can get to variation 3, which is the specific seats. And I might have to do a little bit of typing here. Steve actually did tell me some interesting tricks that are, yeah, I don't know if I can actually properly draw them out. Can you zoom V2 text a bit? Sure. I'm going to have this posted in a pinned comment afterwards, by the way. So if there's anything that you're not able to see, you can always just look at the pinned comment afterwards. I've been doing that for the last like 5 to 8 videos. I've meant to actually go through my really old ones and do that as well, but they are all at least within the Discord channel. And again, I posted that link in the live chat. It is in the live chat, and I would actually not have this issue with needing to zoom in a bit more if it weren't for being on a different setup today. Again, I'm locked out of my apartment, so I have a new setup that I'm using for today's live stream, unfortunately. Any other week and I would have just canceled it or kicked it back by a week, but we were handling problem number 50 today, and I will not let anything in the world stop me from covering this problem. So I'm just making do with it as it is. All right, hopefully that has been hopefully you guys have been able to read that. Maybe I'll just do large. That would have been a good idea. I probably should have just set it to large. Cool. All right. And again, it's going to be posted in the chat in a pinned comment, and it's also going to be on Discord afterwards. It might take until tomorrow morning to remember to do it, but it will be there within the next, I don't know, 24 hours or 2 days, or probably the next 24 hours. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to variation 3. Yeah. Okay. So variation 3, specific seats. All right, variation 3. Individual seating. And okay, and there's group ticketing too. I'm gonna do some typing here. I have these notes copied from last time because it has a lot of overlap with the flash sale problem. So variation 3. So there's a couple of different approaches to this. One of them that I had was pre-cut groups of tickets, and then you're able to devolve it into that flash sale approach again, where you're just cutting out these groupings of 2 tickets or 3 tickets, and you just have these counters, and so you actually treat it as like a section ID type. And then I mean, you would still kind of need to have you'd still kind of need to have like individual IDs, but I guess you wouldn't actually really need to figure it out right away. There's tricks though where so you wouldn't actually need to find 2 seats next to each other like live though. You can make it async either by kicking that work ahead of time or to afterwards. And so that was my first idea. And then there's the second approach. Amazon. So Steve actually filed a patent for this. Amazon's patent for it's like a Zor trick. There's Steve, I haven't managed to like fully go over this, but like you might have here, I think I can kind of draw the Zor trick out. This is in an Amazon patent that Steve actually filed. His name's on it, I think. But like, imagine you have like a row of seats, and then you draw some lines through it. We're gonna do 1, 2. Sorry. Oh, I can just copy and paste it, and that would be a lot faster. Sorry. All right, so we got a row of seats here, and let's say that you need 3 seats. So you need 3 seats. So we're going to draw that like this. And so you can like Zor over it in some way that like there was this problem on Leak Code that has, I think it was like is duplicate or something, and you're able to do some thing where you like scan over it in a certain way, and it checks whether or not you're actually able to get a group of like 3 in a row on there. So Zor trick. Hopefully that I was on the same page as Steve with how the heck what he actually patented. And then with he actually, so that is how Amazon was doing the ticketing, is that it actually did use this Zor trick. So again, you got like a row there, and then you got another row. And so you can't just have them all in a line, because it's then you might have like you might have you know, one ticket here and one ticket over here. And so if you just numbered them all out, that might not be correct. And so you actually still have like rows of tickets. And so that's why the pre-cut approach that I had brought up might make a lot of sense, is that there might actually be a ton of complex logic for making sure that you get 2 seats that are actually like right next to each other, and they're not like, this, where you get one here and then the next one's on the next row. So pre-cut, and then you just have a counter of the pre-cut out 2s and stuff. I see a comment in chat. I'm just kind of reading it. Yeah, I was actually trying out. It was okay. So someone's just commenting on how to use excalidraw a little bit more effectively. I kind of do care about this, because in interviews, you can ask for using a specific tool, and actually at Facebook they mainly use excalidraw for their interviews. Google uses like Google Draw or some crap, or maybe even Google Docs, and then it's a bad experience. And so most people actually ask to use a different tool in Google's interviews. And so you can actually request to use excalidraw in the Google interviews for system design. And so get proficient with excalidraw and you'll be at an advantage. Yeah, I actually was just using the number keys for trying to draw this out. So I had like the 6 pulled up on my thing, and I was trying that out. Oh, Google likes Jamboard. You know what? I'm going to copy and paste that. Of course, everyone wants to try and crack Google's interviews. So it's, what the heck? What? Why did it copy and paste like that? There. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Google uses Jamboard apparently. Everyone was cracked Google, so that's why I specifically recorded that. Cool. All right. So there's the Zor trick. I think all right, let me try and draw it out a little bit. We're gonna do, so you've got your request coming in, and then so like the seats inventory trick from the airline problem. So you have an individual seat, and you also might want to show whether or not something is sold out. And so with the airline problem, what I had was a little DB trigger that would update a counter. And so you can actually use a counter for updating. You'd have like the seats table. You'd have a seats table and an inventory table. So you might also want to keep the inventory counter to determine whether or not something's sold out. And so it's like, this is like metadata for the seating itself. But then you would have over here, you could have so again, you would have the event ID, the section ID, and then instead you would have a seat number. And then you can even have a pre-cut ID. I'm going to do that, and then seat number, say seat number 45B, just like an airplane. And then you might want to do a pre-cut ID. And you could do like a pre-cut type. So 2, we could say, I don't know how, I mean, I guess kind of generate them a little bit like a, what's it called? My mind's blanking. A UUID could generate them kind of like a UUID. You could do that, a pre-cut type. And then so when you're pre-cutting these out, you got that pre-cut counter too. And so you can also have, well, okay, so that's going into the this is the pre-cut the pre-cut approach. There's Steve's approach, there's the pre-cut approach. All right, let's also copy one over for Steve's approach. So I'm going to move this down. This is we got approach one is Steve's approach, and then okay. We'll call Steve's. I'm going to reverse the order of this. Yeah, so Steve's approach is approach one, and then mine is going to be approach two. So we're going to move this one down. It's going to be approach two, and then we're going to copy and paste it for approach one, which is Steve's XOR trick. So that way the approach one is close to the XOR trick and the arc for it. Okay, so you would need a seat number. Okay, and then you don't have a pre-cut ID, you don't have a pre-cut type, you would have availability, you'd have whether or not the seat is available. Cool. All right. And then another thing that you might want for this, so if you're picking the individual seat, I mean, I think you would probably want to have the customers updated on those seats getting like X'd out. And then so you might actually want to set up a socket and do some kind of replication thing there. When I was going over this with Steve, he actually noted that with Facebook Messenger, they actually did this really fascinating thing where I think a browser actually has a local, you can actually have like SQLite or something like running for a website like on an end user's machine. It's like there's all these different new storage technologies you can use for websites now. I guess like you can actually kind of use like SQLite. And so something that I think Facebook did for Facebook Messenger is that they actually have every single user's browser is actually a read replica. And so they have this their leader database that you send your message to, and then the way that it does the way that it like sends out the messages, I guess, involves these like read replicas like directly on your like browser clients or something. It was weird, but like we're doing something a little bit like that. I don't know if I would really describe it like the exact same way, but you would want to have a WebSocket connection. So here we're going to say that there is a little WebSocket on. I guess there's like the seat selection. You want to like add a seat to your cart, and then you actually can like check out the seat. You can actually book the seat, but you would want to like get it in your cart, and then you actually like place an order for the seat. Oops. All right, let's move this up and make a little bit of room. Okay, so we got the WebSocket. So you have a user booking, trying to get a seat. So you've got this thing over here. You've got this like WebSocket. Okay. Got this WebSocket. Oh, move to the front, move to the front. There we go. Okay, so you got the WebSocket, and then when there's a seating update, so you have a seat that gets updated, you've properly seized it, and then you're gonna have a little Redis pub sub. it's going to broadcast out that like, hey, this seat just became unavailable. And then Redis pub sub is going to like send that out. This. Oh, and look at that. I put the WebSocket in the wrong place too. It's supposed to be on the browser. All right, so you like have this like WebSocket open up with one of the servers. All right, and then there's some kind of seat that becomes unavailable. Go ahead and tell people about that. You could even do polling instead, I guess. You could poll for what seats are open at a regular interval. But that would be a lot of read volume. You've already got all this write volume going on. Now you've got like this read volume going on too. And so you might even want to have like a different replica just for like pulling off of instead of doing a WebSocket approach. All right, I'm going to go through comments really quick because I might have done something really stupid. Event data is super high volume, right? So the ticket DB is not sharded. No, the ticket DB is definitely sharded. And then this is the strategies that you actually shard over the event ID. You want to shard over the event ID. It's similarly to I kind of assume that everyone has context on flash sale problem that I just did last week, and that we're just sharding over the event ID. And the event ID is shared across both of these, across all the tables. And so that's how you're able to partition it and avoid a distributed transaction completely, is that all three tables have an event ID. Oh, wait, it's okay. Thinking here for a second. You have the event ID. You can't shard by the event ID. Sorry, you cannot shard by the event ID because then that would give you a hot partition. You definitely can't shard by the event ID. You can shard by the user ID or the request ID, and then each of the shards actually has a piece of a sharded counter. So yeah, you can't shard by the event ID. Sorry, that was stupid. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, let's go over that really quick. So the partitioning key would actually be either the user ID, or you can even do the request ID. So either of those work. And actually, you'd probably want to do the user ID because then they could also even look it up later. Later they're going to look it up by the user ID, or I don't know. I guess either of those probably work. But then so you have that, and then each of the shards is going to have a chunk of that quantity for the event ID. So you would also want to have some kind of sharding, some kind of thing for splitting the quantity over multiple shards. And each one of those would go with the event ID. So this is yeah, you do not want to shard by the event ID. You want to give a budget of the event ID to each of the shards that you're sharding it out to. We're going to give this a sharding key or something. It's just like a random number. Yeah. But you do not want to shard by the event ID. Sorry, that was wrong. I don't think I said that last week. I hope I didn't say that last week. Okay. Yeah, I had that over there too. So that was crap. Good catch. Thank you. Yeah, okay. I was totally on the ball there that or on point there that I did something stupid. Yeah, I screwed up the partitioning key. It's you do not want to partition by the event ID. And then the pre-cut approach, is it single? No, it's not a single node. Yeah, you do the same thing, but instead you are giving yeah, so it's the same thing with so pre-cut just means that you've somehow cut it into you've cut up the seating into things where you have like the adjacent twos or threes. You just have some kind of thing that cuts it up so that here I can go over that here. So instead of just having the section ID, you also have um, grouping count. And so that is twos, threes, fours, maybe. You're not really going to have a lot of groups of 10. I don't know how the heck you would handle the weird groups. I actually did talk to Steve about this, but it's like you would just kind of like neglect the groups of 10 or something that are booking. If you do see somebody that just like books a group of 10, it might be a scalper. So groups of 2, 3, 4 pre-cut out. And so you just treat that like a section ID though. And then somehow you would either just keep that separately and like you don't actually assign the number of the seats until later, or you would have somehow pick random things from you pick random pre-cut seat IDs from the list of twos that are cut out from the seat mapping. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So if so for the Zor trick, it's like for example, if you have somebody that is already, so it's like this seat's already taken. And so you're like running this like 3 over it or something to check that like the seats are booked or not. Yeah, I might have a misconception of that. Amazon has some kind of patent out there about it. Yeah. So that is, yeah, that is one of the tricks about why I think the fan out thing is I don't really want to even go into it, is that it's, you should it like would at least show you things that you definitely can't book like after the fact. I mean, so like let's say it opens up at midnight and then let's say it takes 30 minutes to sell out and you've come in at like 5 minutes after it opens, then you would at least see the first couple of rows sold out or something. I mean, certain other seats that are like in the fourth or fifth row might be like selling out as you're trying to book them, but at least you wouldn't try and go for like row number 1 and try and book those. You could try and go for like something in the middle or something. Like, so if you have like a big group of like 10 and you're trying to book something, you would probably want to go for like the middle section or somewhere that's like not immediately sold out. But that is the reason for the fan out, is that you could still individually pick specific seats, possibly. How do we handle unregistered guest users? So you have the request ID, and then you would have the email as part of the information they submit. You would have their email address. So drop the user ID and require email address in their payment info submission form. And then if they typed the wrong email address or something, you could always use their credit card number to relook it up or something. I don't know how the heck they do that if they do allow guest submissions, but it's usually they're at least going to require an email address that they can send you a email with information to confirm that your ticket was properly purchased. So maybe user ID is not the best primary choice, and you just go off of like request ID. That's probably the winning partitioning key option here is the request ID. Yeah, that's our winners, the request ID. I'm gonna check back how in the heck I handle this for the flash sale problem afterwards. I really hope I said request ID or something like that last time. Maybe I had a better answer. I hope it was an item ID though. Why would booking be allowed in the first place if we are not logged in? So I mean, yeah, that's right. We could even require that they log in first. So, or we could require user ID. Cool. All right, let me go over other messages. So it is like we are in between of our transaction and someone gets books for the same, else books the same seat. Will we get different seats in turn, or will our transaction not succeed? So if you're looking for a specific seat and you like type in specifically 45B, I want that, your transaction will not succeed. And so you're getting these things, but it's a stale read, and so that means that your transaction might still fail with the real-time check. So yeah, that's it was a valid point. Like, why store in a local DB because we can't handle real-time events? Well, it would prevent you from trying to book for row 1 or 2, which would be maybe sold out 5 minutes earlier. Hey, maybe you're going to shoot for row 3, even though it's rapidly getting booked up, but it would still fail, and that's like a safety thing, and like maybe I feel like it'd be scalpers that would like score the first couple of rows, because they might just like spam out a bunch of requests for like the first couple rows, like right at midnight on the dot. But like the point is to not, it's if you want to go for something quirky, like if you have like this thing that's like, I don't know, let's say that this is our seating, and we've got row 1 is like up here, and then we got our last row over here, and you want to book like 10 seats. You want to book a whole group of 10. And let's say that you're down to book 2 rows like this, and you all want to sit by each other. And so you're going to book them all right over here or here or something. Group seating, that's why you would have it. So real-time updates, you would obviously have like this big chunk like right here is like immediately going to be like red. And so let's fill it like there. Yeah, solid. Yeah, there we go. So those are all going to be filled out like immediately, but like you can still book those just fine. That's the point in the fanned out thing over here is hey, don't book these ones. Oh, well, I need 10 tickets though. Well, that's what you can do. Okay, let's keep going. Alternatively, so with the 2 like pre-cut ones though, it's like who all's going to book like 10 seats? Not many people are going to book like 10 seats. So like for the first couple of rows though, I think you'd probably most likely want to have the pre-cut sections of like 2 to 3 that are like fairly common. So it would be fair to like do some pre-cuts like that. You would have like, you could like randomly distribute the 2s and 3s and just have weird logic like run way beforehand, so that way you don't try and do that on the fly when the actual sale opens up. All right, am I answering everyone's questions properly? So is it like we are in between of our transactions, someone else books? Yes, I think that's roughly, yeah, it's just that so you still have the real-time check enforcement, but like it can be a little stale. Okay, should we not shard based on user ID plus seat ID or any other combination? I think sharding on seat ID is an option for individual seat picking. So for the first two, you couldn't shard on something like that. But in this case, I think you could actually shard on a specific seat number. That is probably a very good potential option. And then instead of having a request ID on the routing, you could actually just route a specific seat number. But the issue with that is that you could have other events. So this is a general database for multiple use cases possibly. And so like some events might have general admission, while others might have specific seating options. And so if you do shard by the seat ID, well, there's some other events that might not have seat IDs. So you could use it as an optional piece of it. So I guess what you could do is, so you'd have an event ID and the seat. No, because then the event ID can't be the first part of the partitioning key. You would, if there is a seat number, you would probably want to have that as the first attribute of partitioning key. So you would have that as first partitioning key option. And then you would like build it as you can do like a concatenated index. So there's you'd have it first narrowing down by this if it is available, and then you could have you wouldn't okay. The request ID as the second thing that you would be narrowing down on. And it's over the order table, I guess. Yeah, you'd have it through the order table. Okay, and then we have seat number for the section ID. And then this is the second partitioning key, which was always available. Or this one, which would, if you force login, it would also always be available. Yeah, you'd be partitioning over this thing first, and the rest is just kind of a consequence of it. And you have like a sharded counter or something, or with seat numbers, it's not really as much of an issue. Geez. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting though. I'm fairly certain you can do something like this though. When would we use sharding keys for database, and how is it used for this in this scenario? So I've got our sharding key. Well, so sharding keys are for routing requests to the proper machine when you have it horizontally scaled out for writes. I'd recommend reading DDIA for more information on partitioning keys if you don't understand how partitioning keys help with scaling stuff out. DDIA has the best information on that. Otherwise, there's also for free options that give a much more brief and shallow basic introductory understanding of that stuff. There's also Don Martin's System Design Primer, and this is all in that roadmap that I posted in the chat earlier on. So that was, I can even post that again in my file. Let me copy a link to that. Oh, come on. Hold on. This one, this link. I'm assuming that you wanted to know more about partitioning. Otherwise, that might have been kind of insulting. I hope that's what you were looking for. If there's a different key, go ahead and if there's a different question, go ahead and let me know though. All right, other questions. I think there's. Yeah, book my show is another popular thing that's mixed with this question. People will say that answer this question is TicketMaster / book my show. Seating distribution. Oh, yes. Okay. So I think that's like the seat. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's what the seat number is. It's possible for two users of the same event to land on two separate shards, even though they are trying to book the same event. Yes. Well, so if you're doing group booking, though, it's one person that's buying the tickets. So that's why they would not, that's why you don't have to worry about it, is that if you're doing group ticketing, it's one guy that buys tickets for the whole group. And then, but otherwise, if it's two different users buying their own separate sets of tickets, like if they're both singles or if they're both buying doubles, then they would be able to land on two separate shards. So it's a concept of buying separate buy events versus group ticketing. You definitely do not want to shard by event ID, because then with, for example, with the Taylor Swift concert, so I'm going to say Taylor Swift concert example. So you actually definitely do not want to do that. That is how it crashes. So Ticketmaster actually crashed for the Taylor Swift concert. It just couldn't scale. I mean, sharding by event ID works fine if you have multiple different events going live right at the same time, but the issue is that a single concert, a single big concert with thousands or tens of thousands of seats, like midnight on the dot crashing, like with Taylor Swift, that's why you don't want to do that. Yeah, and so that's what's getting discussed in the chat, is that, yeah, you have that. That is okay. That is actually a great call out, is that you can even do a hot key and just give a whole, yeah, you can just give a whole machine just one hot key. I think that was even something that was like mentioned by a senior SDULs at Amazon, was that when you have like a flash sale for a specific item, so it works fine with like a flash sale on Amazon.com on like Prime Day, because like those are you have other flash sales going on at the same time. So you have like multiple events that are like super hot. But the issue with the flash sale issue is that there comes a point at which one partition and just giving it to one machine is not enough. And you actually do need several machines dedicated to a single event. And so that works to a point, but then there's an issue where that still is just not enough. And so then you need multiple machines for a single key. So and that's where you introduce the ideas of like what's it called, sharded counters. Yeah. I'm gonna keep going on my thing over here with so this one was the Zor. This is my best attempt at the Zor trick. Also banning out the seed updates. So that's what's going on over there. You got a WebSocket, and then that requires a server-side push. So we got this, and then you have to maintain the connection on the server side, and so your updates are going to come out like that. If you're doing the Zor trick, you're not going to be doing pre-cut stuff, and so that's why it also kind of gets associated with that WebSocket thing right there. Okay, individual seating. Okay, And this is with pre-cut tickets. This is the pre-cut tickets approach. Okay, so you've got a seat number, you've got pre-cut ID, possibly for a seats table. That's one option that I was trying to get into. I think I removed the pre-cut ID stuff over there. Cool. Yes, I did. Yeah, the pre-cut ID is not something needed for that. I don't know if you actually so like you can even just ignore having the pre-cut ID until afterwards, and then you would map the reserved thing from the counter back to a pre-cut ID, like an OLAP table query thing. You can do an OLAP query. I should write down what I'm saying. Yeah, so you can actually like map it back to the pre-cut ID, I think afterwards, and then you would send them an email like even like 3 hours later or something, I guess. And then so like meanwhile you've reduced it back to the flash sale problem again by using the group count. They're looking for a 2, you'd have like the 2 counter. And then another thing that you can even do is like if the 2s runs out and you still have 4s, you can have a DB trigger that watches this thing run out, and you could start splitting the 4s up. So that's a little idea that I'm throwing out there. It's like a little nuance that I don't think you really need to worry about, but you're still just treating grouping counts as section IDs, and you've reduced it back to flash sales, something I'd like to point out. Yeah, okay. And then so you've got your section ID, and you would even have your little the grouping count type, which is 2s, 3s, 4s. You got a ticket for, well, so that's just the quantity. That's the quantity. You definitely need to have the grouping count over here. It's just weird to think of it as a quantity because you've got a quantity of 7,000 for a quantity of 2. So it's a grouping count of 2 is a better word over here. It's the grouping. It's a batch of 2 tickets cut out, and you got 7,000 of them or something. And so over here, the quantity, and it's synonymous over here, the quantity and the grouping count, while over here, the grouping count and quantity actually mean different things. I just wanted to spell that out for you guys. Okay, I am checking on the messages for this. I think that might, well, so you want it to be, you should do seat plus event should work because you want to narrow down by the seat and then the event. I don't know if that's right or if it's the other order, but you want to make sure that it first narrows down by the seat and then the event. Otherwise, you're going to have the event and you still have all the seats in the same partition. It's just make sure the ordering is right. Or yeah. Okay. I'm going to use Postgres or Cassandra. Well, so the issue with Cassandra is that it's leaderless, and so then
I think you really want to have a leader based database, because then it gets it's you can't make it linearizable. You need PostgreSQL. I don't think I never even spelled that out. Okay, but I think I spelled that out in Flash sales that you have PostgreSQL manually sharded. Cassandra's actually a huge no-no on this. We're using Postgres on its linearizable setting. And you like just cannot get Cassandra to be linearizable. That's why we need Postgres here, is that you just can't get Cassandra to be linearizable. And by default, PostgreSQL is actually set to read committed, not linearizable, by the way. So you have to like manually specify to PostgreSQL that you want to use the linearizable isolation setting or serial. I think it's so there's isolation versus consistency. And so if you actually specify the isolation level, I think, and you want to set whatever it is to the max level on Postgres. Yeah. Okay. So I've got that. Got the pre-cut tickets. That's afterwards, and so that would just be something similar to the task runners. That you could even have you can have the seats data store over in some kind of warehouse or something. It's weird to say that this would be in a data warehouse, but you're basically going to be doing some kind of OLAP query. So you just like don't really want to have that. It's not supposed to be in something that is oops, I should have drawn this a little bit differently. You don't want to have this in something that's actually customer facing. I mean, I guess you could even use PostgreSQL. Is fine for it, but the way that you think about this is that it's an analytical process. It's an analytical data store. You're doing analytical queries, not OLTP queries. So it's either an OLAP data space, but you could even do PostgreSQL. It's just some kind of funky thing where you're going to be mapping out the seating arrangement to the actual ticket data store. And then, oh shoot, I drew that in a stupid way. It's a task runner, and then it actually interacts with the seats database. So you have your seats over here. Then you got this thing. And you just got those seats, you're going to be pulling them, and they're got the pre-cut seats, and you're going to be assigning them to the ticket data store somehow. Yeah. Okay, and you're also going to like set this up beforehand with pre-cutting, and then afterwards you're going to go through the pre-cut tickets and actually assign them out to people. It's what I'd imagine. And somebody has some information about Postgres and the transaction settings. So I should definitely paste that over here for everyone. Read committed is the default isolation level in PostgreSQL. When a transaction uses this isolation level, select query, sees only data committed before the query run. Yeah, so you definitely want to see yeah, so the transactions kind of need to make sure they don't result in conflicts with each other. All right, I think I've got everything that I
can imagine I can come up with tonight. This is decent coverage of the problem. I'm rather happy with it. I did at least take a shot at describing all the approaches that I came up with. And I should specify that this is a DB trigger for updating the count. That's actually, it tried to draw it weird. There we go. Yeah, you got a DB trigger there. Okay, yeah, so we've covered everything that I think I could come up with. We covered the pre-cut tickets approach, the Zor trick approach, the best of my abilities for the moment. I think I'm okay with wrapping it up now. I don't see any other questions remaining, so you guys are free to drop off. Thanks for joining. I'm going to zoom out for people watching this at YouTube. They're just going to skip to the end. There, okay, and then again, the text is going to be pasted in a pinned comment as well as the diagram. If you guys come up with any questions afterwards, feel free to drop them in a comment below or in the Discord channel. I'm definitely gonna open up a thread in the forum discussion for this. Thanks again for joining. You guys have a wonderful night. Thanks.